Emily cried as if the whole world had collapsed upon her. She felt lost, cornered, with no answers. It was as if life had taken everything from her hands, and in the silence of her pain, she only wanted to understand, how long would she have to suffer like this? Mornings had lost their light. Emily woke up with a weary body and a heavy mind, as if each new day was just another battle against the thoughts that would not let her rest. She looked at the clock, but time dragged endlessly, and with every minute, anxiety tightened her chest. Nothing had color, nothing made sense anymore. At night, nothing changed. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, searching for answers that never came. The silence of the room only echoed the voices of fear in her mind. What if nothing changes? What if I never get out of this? Tears had become her secret routine, a hidden release no one ever saw. Even when surrounded by people, Emily felt invisible. She talked, she smiled, she did what was expected of her, but inside she carried a weight that seemed impossible to bear. No one could see the storm consuming her, and that made her loneliness even deeper. After all, how could anyone understand a pain she herself couldn't explain? As time went by, Emily felt trapped in a maze with no exit. She tried to distract herself, but even the smallest reminder brought back that crushing sense of failure. The future, once bright with possibilities, now looked like a dark abyss she had no courage to step into. Days blurred together, and hope slowly faded away. What once was simple exhaustion turned into apathy. Emily no longer made plans, no longer dreamed of anything new. She lived on autopilot, trying to survive, but not believing that real change could ever come. Inside her, a constant battle raged. Part of her mind whispered that it was impossible to escape, that everything was lost. Yet deep within, a gentle voice kept insisting, maybe there was something more, a way out her eyes just couldn't see yet. And it was that voice that kept her from giving up completely. Her emotions came like waves, sometimes calm, sometimes violent. Some days she believed she could endure, but soon she was pulled under by pain once again. This constant instability left her exhausted, as if she was fighting a war against herself that she could never win. She looked ahead and saw only unanswered questions. The future seemed like a wall she could not climb, and hope no longer lived in her days. But the universe always listens to hearts that cry out, and Emily was about to discover that her story would not end in suffering. Something greater was already moving in her direction. Maybe this video is the very sign you asked the universe for. Subscribe now to the channel to keep receiving messages and stories that strengthen your faith and speed up your manifestations. Leave a like so this energy can reach more people, and write in the comments, I believe in my manifestation. Every time you declare it, the universe understands that you are ready to receive. Emily had a steady job. She was dedicated, always arrived early, and consistently went beyond what was asked of her. Deep down, she believed all that effort would eventually bring recognition. But life isn't always fair. Small whispers began to spread, twisted words that questioned her integrity. Until one day, she was called into the office and, without a chance to defend herself, was given the news she feared most: she was fired. The shock was instant. Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She went home with teary eyes and a confused mind, asking herself how something like that could happen to someone who had only ever given her best. The injustice hurt more than the loss of her paycheck. In the first few days, she tried to believe it was just a passing phase. She sent resumes, went to interviews, but doors began to close one after another. Every, unfortunately, you were not selected, was like a knife to her self-esteem. The confidence she once carried started to fade away. Money began to run out. Bills piled up on the table, and that growing stack felt like a cruel reminder of how her life had crumbled. Rent was overdue, and the fear of eviction became a ghost haunting her through sleepless nights. Those around her didn't understand. Some said it was simply a lack of effort, others that it will all work out in the end. But no one really knew the pain Emily was living. Each misguided comment was another wound on an already broken heart. Slowly, she withdrew. Friends stopped calling, family stopped asking. Emily no longer had the energy to pretend everything was fine. Social media, once filled with smiling photos, fell silent. The world seemed to keep moving forward while her life was left in pieces. It was in this silence that depression settled in. Every morning, getting out of bed became a sacrifice. Her body felt heavy, her mind exhausted. Emily looked at herself in the mirror and could no longer recognize who she was. Where had the strong, determined woman gone? All she saw was a faded version of herself. The nights were even crueler. The silence of her home seemed to scream, and the fear of the future suffocated her. Emily thought of everything she had lost and how impossible it seemed to start again. Tears became her only faithful companion. In the midst of so much pain, she began to believe there might be no way out. The weight of rejection, financial insecurity, and emotional emptiness carved a hole so deep it seemed impossible to escape. Emily asked herself, "Is this where my life ends?" Little did she know that even in the darkest moments, the universe is still at work in silence. Emily believed she was alone, but her story was far from over. Something was already shifting, and soon she would discover that there was more waiting for her than despair could ever show. Emily didn't give up fighting right away. As soon as she lost her job, she believed she would find another quickly. She polished her resume, scheduled interviews, sent countless emails. But one by one, the replies were always the same: "Unfortunately, you were not selected." The initial excitement slowly turned into frustration. Each interview was a mix of hope and fear. Emily dressed her best, wore her brightest smile, but as she walked out of the room she could already feel the sting of rejection. Often, she could tell by the cold look in the recruiter's eyes that her chance was over before the conversation even ended. With every closed door, her confidence shattered a little more. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming. Rent was overdue, and the landlord grew impatient. Emily no longer knew how to explain that she had no money. She hid the warning letters in a drawer, trying to forget, but they pressed against her chest like heavy stones that never let her breathe in peace. Food was running out. She survived on small snacks, often going hungry in silence. The almost empty fridge was a cruel reminder of the reality she was living. Her water and electricity bills were about to be cut off. Every sound at the door made her heart race, terrified it would be the final notice. Shame consumed her. She had never imagined that after so much effort, she would find herself in such a humiliating situation. The despair wasn't only in her pockets, it was in her soul. Emily felt crushed by the pressure of having no way out. She tried to hide it from the few people still around her, but her tear-filled eyes revealed the truth. Loneliness grew heavier each time she realized there was no one there to reach out a hand. On some days, she thought of giving up completely. Her mind whispered that nothing mattered anymore, that her life was already over. Depression weighed her down, making it impossible to leave her bed, and the silence of the empty house only deepened the torment. And then, on one of those nights when the pain became unbearable, Emily surrendered. With tears streaming endlessly down her face, she looked at the ceiling and whispered in a trembling voice, "If there is something greater out there listening, please, show me a sign. I don't know what else to do." That simple prayer, born from a broken heart, was her last attempt. She had nothing left in her hands. Emily gave the universe the only thing she still carried, the hope of being heard. Little did she know that, in that very moment, something had already begun to shift. The universe, silent and mysterious, was preparing the answer that would transform her life. That night, when Emily believed there was no way out, she lifted her tear-filled eyes and, between sobs, whispered, "If there is something greater, please, show me a sign. I can't do this on my own anymore." It was a simple request, almost desperate, but filled with truth. The next morning, still weary, she went down to the lobby to check her mail. There, resting on one of the chairs, was a navy blue notebook, left behind. Emily almost walked past it, but something within her made her stop. On the cover, written in firm handwriting, was a phrase, "Everything you seek already exists within you." Those words struck her like a wave to the chest. Emily froze, staring at the cover. It felt as if someone had answered her prayer from the night before. She picked up the notebook carefully, her heart racing, as if holding a mysterious key. Hours later, she learned the notebook belonged to the building manager, an elderly man with a calm voice and serene eyes. When she returned it, Emily couldn't resist commenting on the phrase written on the cover. The man smiled gently and said, "Those words are part of something greater. Have you ever heard of the law of attraction?" Emily shook her head, curious. The manager then began to explain. He told her the law of attraction was not just a concept, but a way of living. He said the universe responds to our vibrations, that everything is energy, and whatever we think and feel intensely ends up manifesting in our reality. She listened in silence, absorbing every word. Part of her was skeptical. Could this really be true? Yet, at the same time, she felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't known for months. It was as if, at last, a small ray of light had broken through the darkness. The manager encouraged her to begin in a simple way, to write in a notebook everything she desired, as if it had already come to pass. Write as though it's already real. Give thanks for it, even before you see it. That's how you change your vibration, he explained patiently. Emily went back home with those words echoing in her mind. For the first time, she didn't feel completely alone. It was as though the universe had truly answered her prayer, delivering a sign through something so ordinary, yet carrying a message filled with power. That night, she opened an old notebook she had kept tucked away and wrote, with trembling hands, "I am prosperous. I am happy. I am living a new beginning." When she finished, she cried again, but this time, there was something different in her tears, a thread of hope. And so began her journey with the law of attraction. Emily didn't know exactly where it would lead her, but for the first time in a long while, she felt that maybe the universe was on her side. And I want to tell you right now, the universe has heard your prayer. You have not been forgotten. This is your sign. Trust, because change has already begun. Emily decided to follow the building manager's advice. She took that old notebook and, even afraid of fooling herself, began writing daily affirmations in the present tense. I am prosperous. I am happy. I have abundance in my life. With each word, she tried to imagine what it would feel like if it were already true, as though it was her reality. In the first few days, nothing extraordinary happened. But Emily noticed a subtle shift within herself. She no longer woke up feeling as heavy as before. It was as if the simple act of writing had opened a small space of hope in the middle of chaos. The first concrete sign came when she received an unexpected call from the power company. She had been expecting disconnection due to late payments, but the representative offered her the option to set up a payment plan and keep the service active. Emily breathed with relief. She wrote in her notebook, "Thank you, universe, for giving me more time." A few days later, a neighbor knocked on her door with a homemade meal. She said she had cooked too much and thought of Emily. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she thanked her. Small gestures, which she might have overlooked before, now felt like clear answers from the universe. Encouraged, she stayed consistent with her practice. She repeated affirmations in the mirror, even when her mind tried to resist. I deserve good things. I am capable. I attract opportunities. With each repetition, she felt as though she was reprogramming something deep within herself. And then came a phone call for a job interview. Her heart raced. Emily prepared as never before, but this time was different. She walked in with confidence, silently repeating to herself that she was already hired. When the news came that she had gotten the job, she couldn't hold back her tears. To her, this job was more than just a position, it was proof that the universe was truly listening. She wrote in her notebook, I am grateful for this new beginning. And this time, she didn't just write it, she believed it. The first days at her new job brought relief. Emily had a routine again, a sense of purpose again. The salary wasn't high, but it was enough to cover part of her bills and give her room to breathe once more. And yet, doubt still crept in. Is this just coincidence? Will it really last? But at the same time, something inside her whispered that she was on the right path. Every small victory felt like a direct response to the new energy she was cultivating. Emily realized that nothing happens by chance. The universe had been responding to the vibration she was now sending out. Her words, her feelings, and her new posture were creating the first shifts in her reality. And the more she believed, the more doors could open before her. The more Emily practiced, the more curious she became. She wanted to understand why small things were starting to work out, when before everything seemed hopeless. So, she began researching the law of attraction, watching videos, reading articles, and asking the building manager questions whenever she had the chance. She discovered that the law of attraction is not just a motivational idea, but a universal law, as real as gravity. This law teaches that everything in the universe is made of energy, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And that energy, once released, attracts frequencies that match it. Emily realized that for a long time, her life had only mirrored her pain and fear. She had been vibrating scarcity, sadness, and hopelessness, and that was exactly what kept showing up. She understood now that the universe doesn't punish, it simply responds to what we send out. It was then that she grasped a powerful secret. It's not enough to just think about something, you must feel it as if it were already real. If she wanted prosperity, she needed to feel gratitude and abundance, even when she had little. If she wanted peace, she had to embody serenity, even in the midst of chaos. Emily began explaining it to herself, as if talking to someone beside her. The mind is like fertile soil. If I plant fear, I harvest more fear. If I plant trust, I harvest results. Whatever I give energy to, grows. She also learned that words carry creative power. Each time she said, I can't, she was reinforcing lack. But when she started affirming, I am capable, something within her began to shift. It was as if she were reprogramming her mind and training her heart to believe in a new reality. Another important thing she discovered was the power of visualization. Emily would close her eyes and picture herself already living the life she wanted. She saw herself in a comfortable home, working with joy, surrounded by peace. The more vivid that image became, the more real it felt within her. The building manager, always patient, reminded her, Emily, everything is vibration. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you change inside, the world outside changes too. That phrase became a mantra in her mind. With this understanding, Emily began to see life differently. Every thought became a conscious choice, every emotion an invitation to align with what she truly desired. She discovered she had far more power than she had ever imagined. And maybe you, watching this right now, need to hear the same. The universe makes no exceptions, it responds to everyone in the same way. The life you long for already exists in potential. All you need to do is align your vibration, feel now what you wish to live, and trust that the universe is already responding. For a few weeks, Emily felt like she was rising. Her notebook was filled with positive affirmations, her new job brought relief and even moments of joy. She believed, at last, that things were changing for the better. But deep inside, fear still lingered. Every time she paid a bill, a thought crept in, will I have money next month? When she received compliments, her mind whispered, this won't last. Those small doubts seemed harmless, but they carried an energy that went against what she wanted. And then it happened. The company announced unexpected cuts, and Emily's contract was among those cancelled. It felt like a punch to the stomach. When she heard the news, her hands shook, and the ground seemed to disappear beneath her feet. The walk home was heavy and silent. Emily felt the old pain trying to return, again, why always me? Tears rolled down her face, but this time something was different. In the midst of the pain, she remembered the manager's words, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Sitting in her room, notebook in front of her, Emily cried, but she didn't give up. Through her tears, she wrote, I choose to release everything that limits me. I let go of the fears that hold me back. I trust that something greater is at work. Each phrase felt like a prayer for healing, not just for prosperity. She began to realize that it wasn't enough to just write desires, she needed to shift her vibration from the inside out. Her limiting beliefs, fear of not being good enough, fear of lack, fear of failure, were blocking her energy. It was time to break free from those invisible chains. Emily dove even deeper into her studies. She learned that releasing limiting beliefs is like clearing space in a cluttered house. If there's no room, the new cannot enter. So she began practicing affirmations of release. I am worthy. I deserve abundance. I release all fear. The days that followed were intense. Facing her own negative thoughts wasn't easy, but every time they appeared, Emily replaced them with new words. She began to understand that the real work of the law of attraction wasn't just about wishing, it was about transforming her inner energy. That painful moment became a turning point. Emily stopped seeing loss as punishment and began to see it as a calling. The universe was showing her that it was time to align not only what she wrote in her notebook, but also what she believed about herself. And there, in the silence of her room, Emily made a decision. I will no longer vibrate in fear. I will vibrate in trust. I will become the person who already lives the life I dream of. That choice became the turning point of her transformation journey. You too can experience your breakthrough. When you decide to change within, the universe begins to respond to your energy. Subscribe to this channel to strengthen your faith, expand your vibration, and keep receiving signs like this. And stay with me, because later in this video I'll show you how to keep this new energy moving every single day. Emily realized it wasn't enough to simply write in her notebook as an empty ritual. She had to feel every word, embody the identity of the woman who already lived that life. With that new understanding, she chose to change her posture. Standing in front of the mirror, she began declaring with conviction, I am worthy. I am prosperous. I deserve abundance. At first, her voice still trembled. Part of her insisted on doubting. But with each repetition, something inside her started to shift. It was no longer just a phrase written down, it was a belief taking root in her heart. Emily began to walk differently. Her head was no longer bowed under the weight of pain but lifted with confidence. Her steps grew firmer, and even the way she looked at people now carried a quiet strength. It was as if the energy around her had changed its tone. The reflections of this new identity showed up in simple ways. She received smiles from strangers on the street, better treatment in places that once ignored her, and small opportunities appeared as subtle invitations from the universe. Emily understood, everything was a response to the vibration she now carried. In her next job, her attitude was completely different. She didn't walk in afraid of losing, she walked in knowing her value. Within just a few days, she was already receiving compliments for her dedication and her positive spirit. She was living proof that when you change on the inside, the world around you rearranges itself. With every victory, Emily fueled her confidence even more. She paid off overdue bills, reorganized her finances, and even started saving a portion of what she earned. The old feeling of scarcity was giving way to a new mindset of prosperity. The notebook was no longer just an exercise, it had become her companion on the journey. In it, she wrote not only her desires but also gratitude for what she was already living. This daily practice kept her connected to the energy of abundance. Emily also learned not to cling to how things would happen. She released her intentions to the universe and focused on keeping her vibration high. That trust allowed doors to open naturally, without forced effort. Her transformation became so visible that even those around her began to notice. "You seem different, brighter," they would say. Emily smiled quietly, knowing that what had changed was her inner identity. She was no longer the woman ruled by fear, she had become the woman guided by faith and positive energy. And that was the true turning point. Emily realized that real prosperity doesn't begin in your wallet, it begins in your mind and heart. By aligning her vibration with what she desired, she started attracting opportunities, peace, and abundance as a natural reflection of who she had become. Emily was no longer the same. Her vibration was different, and it showed in every detail of her life. At her new job, her confident posture caught the attention of both leaders and coworkers. It didn't take long before she was recognized not just for her effort, but for the positive energy she radiated. 2 months after starting, she received the news that brought her to tears of joy: she had been promoted. Her salary would increase, along with the responsibility of leading a small team. For Emily, this wasn't just a professional achievement, it was living proof that the universe responds to inner transformation. With her promotion, Emily took an even bigger step. She no longer thought only about surviving, she was ready to truly prosper. She decided to pursue one of her greatest dreams, buying her own home. The process didn't look easy, but she knew that with faith, discipline, and the right vibration, everything was possible. Meanwhile, her emotional health blossomed. The weight of depression was no longer part of her days. Emily woke up with excitement, noticed beauty in the small things, and felt a genuine joy she hadn't experienced in years. The changes were visible in her body as well. She slept better, ate more mindfully, and even began going for morning walks, not because she had to, but because she now had the energy and desire to take care of herself. Her relationships also shifted. More positive people began to enter her life, bringing opportunities and support. Even her neighbors noticed her light had changed. "You look so well, almost like a different person," they would say. Each achievement strengthened her faith. As she opened the pages of her notebook, Emily compared what she had written weeks before with the reality she was now living. Seeing everything materialize was a powerful emotion that made her believe even more. The universe hadn't just given her financial stability, it had given her a new life. Emily discovered that when you change on the inside, the entire world rearranges itself in your favor. And her greatest victory wasn't just the promotion or the new home. It was finding herself again, her confidence, her joy, and the certainty that it is always possible to begin again. Emily had proven that she was not a victim of circumstances, but the creator of her own reality. That was the true manifestation, not only material things, but the inner transformation that made her capable of attracting everything she had ever desired. Emily knew many people would wonder, but how did all this happen? What did you do to change your life? And the answer was not luck or coincidence, but a simple practice that became part of her routine. She picked up a notebook and began writing every day in the present tense, as if what she desired was already real. She didn't write, "I want," or "one day I will have." Instead, she wrote, "I am prosperous. I have abundance. I live in peace." That detail made all the difference, because the universe doesn't respond to a distant wish, it responds to the vibration of who you already are. But it wasn't just about writing words. Emily poured emotion into every sentence. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and imagined what it would truly feel like to live that reality. This practice turned simple phrases into living energy, powerful enough to shift her frequency. She also dedicated a few minutes each day to visualization. She pictured herself already living in her new home, waking up in a bright bedroom, having breakfast calmly, breathing in the scent of success in the air. The more vivid the scene became, the more real it felt within her. Another secret was practicing gratitude in advance. Emily learned that giving thanks before seeing is one of the most powerful ways to align with abundance. She would write, "Thank you, universe, for the house that is already mine. Thank you for the full life I am living." And, with time, those words became her reality. The building manager always reminded her, "It's not magic, Emily. It's a law. Everything you feel, think, and believe sends out a vibration. And the universe responds to it. The more you practice, the stronger the energy becomes." Emily understood that consistency was the key. It wasn't about doing it once and waiting for miracles, it was about turning the practice into a lifestyle. Just like brushing her teeth, she made journaling, visualization, and gratitude part of her daily routine. And it was exactly that routine that opened doors, attracted opportunities, and brought back her joy for life. Emily discovered she didn't need to control how things would happen, she only needed to align her energy with what she desired and trust that the universe would take care of the rest. And maybe this is the message you needed to hear: if you want real change, start today. Take a notebook, write in the present tense, visualize with emotion, and give thanks as if it were already yours. It's simple, but powerful. Emily's journey shows us that nothing happens by accident. What seemed like the end was only the beginning of a new chapter guided by the universe. Pain turned into strength, scarcity into abundance, loneliness into renewed faith. And maybe, just like her, you've come this far searching for answers. If this video has crossed your path, don't ignore it. The universe speaks in mysterious ways, and right now it may be confirming that the change you've been asking for has already begun. So today, choose to align your energy with the life you want to live. Believe that you are worthy, that you are capable, and that the key to transforming your reality already exists within you. The universe responds to your vibration, and everything you need is already within your reach. To keep strengthening your faith and expanding your energy, subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, like this video, and share it with someone who also needs a sign. And write in the comments, "The universe responds to my vibration," because just like Emily, you too can create the life you've always dreamed of. Always remember, there are no coincidences, only answers. And today, the universe used this story to speak directly to you. Receive it, trust it, and allow the next chapter of your life to be written with abundance, peace, and prosperity.